Implications of Electronic Information for the Sociology of Knowledge by Richard A. Lanham, a presentation on digital rhetoric as presented by Christopher Frost and Sharon Paradis. Since the advent of the earliest codex in the Renaissance, the convergence of both technology and humanistic ideology have created and maintained this concept of authoritative text. Humanistic scholarship existed to maintain these texts, and cultural authority flowed from these texts. Thus, dissemination of text became important, along with the translation and publication of the King James Bible. The concept of democratization arose. This system still exists and is so familiar to us, its rules taken for granted, that with the advent of new technologies, the concept of the book, the unchangeable nature of the book, the centrality of the text upon the word, and ultimate authority of the text, now are come to be seen under a new light. Physical property, intellectual property, has now come into question, and the limitations of the text, the scarcity of illustration, general lack of color, and non-existence of sound, have now become possible, practical, and even necessary due to the digital metamorphosis. And as O.B. Hardison has written, we are coming to the end of the culture of the book. This new culture, this change from book and text to screen and hypertext, has caused the old system of cultural authority to evaporate. We've moved from a fixed text and a fixed concept of knowledge, where the reader was defined by print, to a reader that now argues with the text immediately and thus becomes an author. Although it would be a lie to say this form of expression did not exist before, it had already existed in the history of 20th century art, but now the digital revolution has come to the humanities. This new expressive surface now allows us to literalize the metaphor of the colors of rhetoric. We can now transform text font to create meaning. We can add sound and create music. We can add images and alter them, and even add video. With this newfound power comes the realization that with words, we always have the power to reshape the text, and now with the integration of other medium, we can do that with images, resulting in even further democratization. Just as books have transformed in the digital age, the arts, being humanistic information in its most characteristic form, have also been affected by the digital metamorphosis. Examples of how this has happened can be seen in the move to digital music composition, where instead of the traditional instruments, only three were deemed necessary for recording at the beginning of the digital revolution: the electronic keyboard, horn, and drum pad. And from these, songs have been pieced together electronically. This new mode of composition has driven industry to come out with new software to meet the demands of a changed market, and the ease in which amateur musicians can now compose alters the inherent meaning of what musical talent is. In the visual arts, a good example to digital can be seen in the image and photography, where they are no longer required to remain motionless, and are in some degree expected to move. In addition, digital advancement in the visual arts have affected architecture. No longer are there rooms of drafters slaving away at large freehand drawings, but now they sit in front of computers to draw out a design using software such as AutoCAD. In the literary world, the linear format held by books is now an ancient ideal. Articles, stories, and images all connect in the form of hypertextuality, with each link providing more relevance to the original literary piece. Furthermore, postmodern fiction has already experienced a changeover, as seen with the popularity of video games, theme parks, and museum simulations. Even now, history is now simulated and recreated before our very eyes. With all these examples of the impact of the digital revolution on the creation and dissemination of text and information, the question to ask now is, what are the implications for these changes on arts and letters themselves? In a digital universe, words, images, and sound share a common notation, which is to say that they are convertible into one another. Thus, distinct disciplines are becoming mixed in new and unique ways, which changes how a discipline is defined as well as the ways in which it can be organized and taught. We see that the digital revolution has changed what art is, how it is created, and how it is disseminated. The revolution has affected music, images, and other forms of the arts to not only help the original user, but to allow easier access to those who might not normally have the opportunity. These new technologies have allowed new forms of expression with a type of learn by doing attitude, which demands a re-examination of pedagogy in the humanities. The humanities has traditionally been defined as the study of humankind through the great texts, literary, historical, and philosophical, and the art and music which accompany them. This view can now be seen for its narrowness, a product of rhetorical education. Education then has been focused inward, around a verbal or textual center, while nowadays in the new system, the focus is outward onto discrete orbits. This new literacy requires the humanities to, according to Lanham, add new fundamental areas of inquiry, which include behavioral biology, behavioral neuroscience, and the chaos theory. Since the electronic universe isn't going away, the humanities must learn how our knowledge is learned at the neural level, to study how the brain processes this new multimodal literacy. Behavioral biology comes into play because as human communication has become the more digitally based, human motive will need to be remastered. And chaos theory becomes important as digital communication is nonlinear, associative, discontinuous, and interactive. The effect of the digital revolution on the classroom means that the students, the ones with access to computers, will become part of history. They will be citizens of a continuous society of active digital learners that interact and create and build off their predecessors, alongside other students of the electronic universe. This new electronic culture has, in general, allowed widespread democratization, opening up doors to artistic expression formerly closed to people limited by skill, access to text, or education. These effects reach all levels of the human sociology of knowledge, and how universities are to cope with reinventing themselves into the future, especially in the humanities. Thus, Lanham calls for a rethinking of what a discipline is, what a department is, what a major is, to find creative possibilities of integrating oneself into this present-day digital world. For it will only be our fault if we don't change with the times.